I think what I want to start with is just setting some perspective about how we talk about women and peace within the perspective of climate crisis, climate change, climate catastrophe, and as I like to look at it in terms of ecological justice. Why we are saying this is because we know when we talk of the climate, it's not just a question of looking at pollution or looking at what is happening with global warming. You know, we must really look at the inequity that exists today in the world, in our society, in every way, because we know that the impact of this climate crisis is also, it impacts differently depending on the inequity that we have in our society, whether it's race, whether it's caste, whether it's gender, whether it's poverty. I mean, we know that the poorest and the most vulnerable are the ones who are paying the biggest price. Oxfam International has just produced a report called Climate Inequality. I mean, they're linking climate and they're saying that the biggest connection between the climate crisis is with inequality. So we should not forget that. Let's not look at it in a fragmented way. And also they're saying, how will we work for a climate for 99% of the population? Because today it is the 1% of the world's population which is actually creating the crisis. 1% of the population, according to the report, is creating enough emissions and pollutions which two-thirds, 66% of the population does not do. So they are saying, like some years back, we know that the World Economic Forum people had boycotted or they had protested in front of that. And they had said that what about we, the 99%, because the economic policies are only made for the 1%. Similarly, now we are seeing that as we talk about climate crisis, it is actually a question of justice. It is actually a question of an ecological justice. And unless we look at these things in a connected way, we will not be able to, we'll just be sort of grappling in different areas and not actually taking hold of what the problem is. The most interesting thing I found is that young people, it's inspiring to listen to Greta Thunberg or other young people who are today questioning. I mean, Greta Thunberg says that why is it that we have left all our solutions to those very people who have created this and are continuing to create it? She has been to all these powerful places like the UN, like all the economic fora. And she says, I see that it is the white, rich males who are responsible for creating the problem, but they today are the ones, we are telling them to solve our problems. So if youth and young voices and a young woman can show us that she is bold enough to spell it out without feeling scared, she gets trolled, it doesn't matter. She can be physically attacked, she's not. She says, we need that strength to at least call out whose responsibility it is. Because the poorest, their homes are getting drowned, they're lost. We know what global warming is doing. We know the weather that is actually disturbing all our crop patterns, our food patterns, our agriculture. We know how this is getting impacted. But we are sitting, waiting for some forum somewhere to make decisions about which country will pay for the price to actually cut down these emissions. I think our young are telling us it will not work like this. So they are calling for, and I think we must respond, because just as we know that the most vulnerable in our country, especially of the global south, and I am from India, we are in Nepal, we have other countries who are from the global south, and it's not just a country or a location, but it's the conditions. even in a country which may be a rich country, there will be conditions for certain people that they are always the most vulnerable. They're living on the land which can be the most vulnerable. It can get the biggest attack can come on the land when there are climate devastations. So who are these people? And amongst them, women. Wherever we have seen, whatever we have seen, where there have been these climate catastrophes, women get the most to bear the biggest burden of this. I will take a small example of of fish workers in our country, in India, because as it's being shown over here, we were trying to bring in these issues even in our textbooks. This is a chapter from our national textbook, from the mathematics textbook. Why mathematics? Because normally mathematics is assumed to have nothing to do with life, nothing to do with inequity, nothing to do with the climate. Mathematics is somewhere there, ethereal, So we have changed our mathematics to deal with the socio-economic, political, historical conditions of our people, us. And we are trying to say that even in a maths book, we can be looking at issues. So this is a fish tale. So it's not just about fish, but it's about fish workers, the people who interact with the fish, whose lives are tied to the fish. So we, in our textbooks, in the primary stage, because I was the chairperson of the national textbooks in India for the primary stage, we brought this in all the disciplines: mathematics, environmental studies, language. All these disciplines were looking at issues, and our protagonists were women. So we had a junk seller, a true life junk seller, true life stories, a true life junk seller from Bihar. पटना में एक दुकान चलाती है एक किरण लड़की जो एक कबाड़ी की दुकान चलाती है और वो उसको लोगों ने कहा तुम ब्यूटी शॉप चला लो, तुम ब्यूटी सलून चला लो. उसने कहा नहीं, मैं कबाड़ी की दुकान चलाऊंगी. और सब कहते हैं गंदा काम है, गंदा काम है. Everyone says this is dirty work. Don't run a junk seller's shop. It's very dirty. Our societies are also very, very inequitous, and they have strong social stigma about certain work and about caste. So our work gets tied to caste. And these are also the inequalities that we have to fight. So किरण ने एक कबाड़ी की दुकान चलाई और हमने उसको मैथमेटिक्स की टेक्स्ट बुक में हमारी हीरोइन, हमारी मेन प्रोटैगनिस्ट बनाया. और उसकी दुकान और उसकी फोटो आ रही है मैथमेटिक्स में. एंड देन किरण वुड कम एंड टेल अस हाउ शी डज रिसाइकलिंग. वो कैसे कबाड़ जमा करती है, वो रिसाइकल कैसे करती है. और उसने she told us in her story that I used to hate mathematics in school. So there are some subjects which are considered, सिर्फ दिमाग के सब्जेक्ट है, वो हाथ के सब्जेक्ट नहीं है. तो even within our learning and our education, we make hierarchies. Some people can work for knowledge, other people work for skills. Some people will work for the more upmarket skills, other will work for the dirty skills. Unless we fight these divisions, unless we break these hierarchies, we cannot talk of justice, ecological justice in any way. So for us, the challenge is that. So we start very early, even in education, because Greta Thunberg is saying we have to educate ourselves first. We must critically analyze the situation. हम तभी इसका सामना कर पाएंगे जब हम अपने आप को शिक्षित करके अपने आप को जागरूक बनाएंगे कि ये है क्या है ये क्लाइमेट, ये पर्यावरण का क्या मुद्दा है. So that is why we start early and we critically analyze. So from this, I will take the example of fish workers in the textbook. I just give the perspective. Fish workers, I realize that fish workers in the global community is almost like the largest population of people working on one kind of work. The largest, they say, is IT, and after that comes fish work, which is everything. Women may not be going out onto the sea, and I'll come to that because like in our many global south communities, there is a stigma about women actually fishing. So, but we have given the example of women unions, women small groups, which have made a cooperative. They have taken a loan and they actually bought a boat and they were going out to fish. Only women. So we are taking these examples because these are true life examples of women's agency. And how does the collective support the agency? Women can never be portrayed as the helpless, the crying, the always exploited, because that doesn't take you anywhere. Rita and I were just talking. We were hearing some play. We got the sound of some play where women were crying and wailing. And, so we said, we can't take this. It has to be something where we take the agency, but we get the full support. So in terms of, it says that 2/3 of the world's cities are all on coastal areas. And I'm just giving a sense of the scale of, time is running out. Okay. Of the scale of why we are looking at fish workers. And in that today, we find that even the space within which they work, so we are presenting it not like a natural resource. The sea is what is the life of the fish worker. It is not a resource which they are exploiting. Their lives are tied to the sea. So they also care for the sea. So they are asking for rights for the coastal area because no one has rights for that. They are asking for rights against the trawlers. So commercial fishing is now destroying their livelihoods and destroying the sea. So how do you work so that the women and the work that they're doing, the lives that they're living, and the communities and knowledge that they're building, because they carry the knowledge, they know about the sea much more than what any of us might know even when we go to the sea. So using the culture, using traditional, basing it on nurturing traditional knowledge, basing it on the agency of the community to identify itself. They, for instance, in southern states, they fought. The fish smelled so much that they were not allowed to go and carry their fish in a public transport. So they fought for it. They fought for a separate bus so that they could carry fish to the place where they have to go. So I'm saying everyday struggles, even for fish workers, and here, we can share this, it's all online right now. Our government currently will be changing these things because our government does not want to talk about the environment. And we have to face about these issues. We have to face these issues. But I close here to say that unless we can look at lives closely connected with nature, because that is what sustainable is, when communities and cultures have evolved their knowledge to understand nature and to live by the nature, by the earth, and then see how we educate, how we shape our education, our policies, and our struggles for gender equity and equity in general. Thank you.